Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending episode 3 of the Workspace Masterclass, where we're going to get physical. Now you might be wondering, episode 3, what I didn't see episode 1 or 2. Well, you can actually go back and watch the previous Workspace Masterclass episodes by going to citrix.com/events. And when you click on the webinars tab, you'll see this Citrix Workspace Masterclass. And at the bottom of that page that you get to, you're going to see on-demand webinars for the previous ones that we've done. So you'll be able to get up to speed on where we are so far in the Workspace Masterclass. Now, in this particular Masterclass, I have a lot of help in putting all of this stuff together. So we're going to be having this Masterclass broken up to have the other experts to provide some of the insights and examples and demos on how these components will fit together in this masterclass, in this particular episode. So I'm Daniel Feller. I'm a lead architect at Citrix, and I'm going to be doing, of course, the intro here. Plus, I have some things at the end when we talk about some multi-factor authentication. Frank Serp is also at Citrix, technical marketing architect. He's going to be talking about some of the ways they're going to be able to better manage a Windows 10 endpoint for the components that Rob is going to be talking about, as well as Mayank is going to be talking about. So Rob's going to be bringing in more of the content collaboration aspects of a Windows 10 deployment, while Mayank is going to be doing some interesting things on providing remote access to a Windows 10 physical PC. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we have a really smart group of people who are going to help us go through this and set this up and add it into our workspace environment. Now, like I said, this is episode 3. So previously in the Workspace Masterclasses, what we built was a workspace. We built a complete workspace. So in this environment, we have, from the user side, we have Workspace app giving us access to all of our SaaS and web applications, our virtual app and desktop published resources from an on-prem environment. We've incorporated content into our workspace environment as well. Now, how this looks architecturally when we built this out was, first we utilized the gateway service that's running as a Citrix Cloud service. And this provided us access to our on-prem virtual app and desktop deployments using something called site aggregation. So we were able to keep our on-prem environment as is, but leverage the gateway service running in the cloud and allowing users to get access to the environment via Workspace app. Gateway also allowed us to get single sign-on to our SaaS and web applications, using SAML authentication. After that, what we ended up doing was incorporating access control into the environment. So what access control does, it built upon the single sign-on for SaaS and web applications, but it enhances the app security, enhances SaaS and web app security. So it incorporated an embedded browser. And it gives you this native experience. So instead of launching a SaaS application like in a published browser, we have an embedded browser within Workspace app. And what we ended up doing is we utilize that embedded browser and we apply security to that session for the particular SaaS application. So for instance, we might want to be able to disable printing or file copying or navigation. We also, as part of the enhanced app security, we have website filtering. So you can either allow or deny or redirect requests to different websites within that SaaS application. So if you're trying to go to a gambling site within Office 365, we can deny that. If you try to go to social media sites when you're in Workday, we can allow that, but we might redirect it to a secure browser, which is a published browser running in the cloud that's disposable. So it's only there while the user session's active, and as soon as the user disconnects or shuts down that browser, all the data, everything is deleted and removed. So it's a disposable browser that you would use for any links that you want to allow users to get access to, but you don't completely trust. You don't completely trust the security footprint of those applications, but the users need to use them. After that, we took a look at endpoint management. Specifically with endpoint management, we looked at how does it handle local and mobile applications. So for instance, if I have a BYO device, a device owned by the user, how can we use endpoint management to deliver local applications to that BYO device without having it take complete control, without IT having to take complete control over that endpoint device? So we looked at containers. We looked at the application containers. We also looked at delivering applications down to Windows 10 devices. We're actually going to see more of that today in this masterclass. The second part of endpoint management was looking at the device management aspect of it. So the first part was looking at the app management, and the second part was the device management. So setting different policies for the device, setting what users can do with their device and what they cannot have access to. So we looked at all those we started looking at the ways that endpoint management would be able to allow us to start managing all these disparate types of devices that are out there. Not just Windows 10, not just iOS and Android, but providing that framework for how we would manage many, many devices. The last part of the master classes that we've done in episode 1 and 2 was looking at content, integrating content into our environment. And so we really just did the basics for all these things. Did the basics of setting these things up to create that foundation that we're going to expand upon in this episode and in future Workspace Masterclass episodes as well. So let's get into the physical part of this. This is what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the physical machine within our environment. And more specifically, we want to look at Windows 10. How could we incorporate a Windows 10 physical endpoint into our workspace environment? Or more specifically, we incorporated last time just a little bit in episode 2. In this episode, we want to provide more functionality, more integration into our workspace experience for a physical Windows 10 endpoint. So we're going to focus our attention on this. And one of the first things we need to do is to make it easier for the user of that device to access their content regardless of where it lives. So Rob is going to show us how Citrix Files is going to provide us this access to our content that's contained across multiple storage zones and repositories.
Thank you, Dan. And let's get back to last quarter's masterclass. We've shown you there how we can add content collaboration into the Citrix Workspace so that we have access to our files from inside any Workspace environment. So let me launch the Workspace app and I log in with my credentials. And now that I'm logged in, I see my apps, my desktops, and obviously the thing that I'm most interested in, my files. I can go into my personal folder, I can drag and drop a new file in here. It will be automatically uploaded into the content collaboration repository. And basically it allows me to interact with all these files. Same for my team folders. If I go to my personal team, the technical marketing team, I've been working on some materials for Synergy in Atlanta. So let me create a folder for that, Synergy Atlanta. And I'm going to drop the files that I've been working on for my presentation there into this folder. Now, every file is obviously located in the content collaboration repository. But when I go to my Windows Explorer, I can look around, but I don't see my files and folders that I've stored there. So this is a gap, and I want to address that because my employees, they love to work from inside the Explorer with their files and their folders. So let's look at the architecture of content collaboration. Obviously, I have my content collaborations management plane. I'm sitting inside the Citrix Cloud, and I have my devices authenticating to this content collaboration management plane. Now, without the workspace, I would authenticate here directly by providing my username password or perhaps by SAML authentication. But after the authentication, I have access to my storage zones, which is the repository where my files sit. Can be either cloud native, hosted and managed by Citrix, or they can sit on-prem in your own data center, managed by you, the customer. All the file transfers are going directly between my device, my Citrix Files app on those devices, and the repository that I have, so no files are traversing our content collaboration management plane. Now, when I add the Workspace app and the Workspace services to my environment, I can authenticate to the Workspace app, and by the authentication token that I received there, I can then use that to authenticate also to the content collaboration services. So that means that I only have to authenticate once to get into the Workspace app, and then all my Citrix Files clients will automatically be authenticated to the content collaboration service and allow me to access all of the repositories and the files that sit in those repositories directly without having to log on again to these clients. Now let me switch back to my desktop. I'm logged on as the admin, and I'm going to install Citrix Files for Windows and Citrix Files for Outlook. So first I'll start with the Windows app, and this will provide me an interface into the Windows Explorer to access all my files and folders stored inside the Citrix Content Collaboration Service. So no matter where the repository is, whether it's a Citrix Cloud storage zone or it's a on-premises storage zone, I will get access to all the files that are inside those repositories. I also installed the Citrix Files for Outlook app, which exactly as it says, it gives me an app inside my Outlook client so that I can easily share files with others without these files being attached as full attachments, but rather being stored inside a content collaboration repository. Now I want to pre-configure some settings on the Citrix Files for Windows app, so I copy the administrative templates into the correct folder here. I'm on my local device, so I'm copying to the local Windows folder. I'm going to select to. The policy definitions are also available on the download page. I copy them in, so let's validate that the files are there. I have a sfwin ADMX template, and I also have the library file that is associated with that. Now, the files are in place, so let me open up the group policy editor now, gp edit, and what I'll see there when I'm opening my policy editor, and let me maximize the screen, I now have the administrative templates for Citrix Files. I'm going to configure the enable application settings so that on a computer level, the Citrix Files app will always launch for all the users logging on. And I'm also going to configure the enable offline access so that I can store files offline on this device so that I can interact with these files when I don't have a network connection available. The Citrix Files app works through mount points. And by default, we have a single mount point, a drive letter S, pointing to the root of the repository. But I'm going to create two drives, one for my home folders. So I create drive H, and I point that to my personal folder. So this is the location where all my personal files and folders are located. And then I'm going to create a second mount point, pointing to drive T. So let me enable it, drive T, and that one is going to the shared folders, and I want that to be pointing to my team folders that I have in there. So my users are used to these drive mappings from network file shares, and I've moved all the files into my Citrix Content Collaboration repository, and now I have configured that, making sure that they can get to the files in the same place as they are used to. Now, let me quickly refresh the group policies, so a GP update, before I log off and log back in as a regular user. Okay, so that is done. So let me log off, and I'm logging back into the desktop. But now I'm logging in as myself, as a user account, no administrative privileges. So I'm just a regular user, Bob Cipher. I'm coming into my desktop, and what I'll do first is I'll open back up the Workspace app. So just a second here. I have my desktop now, and I can go into my Workspace app. I have to provide my credentials again. But once I've done that, logging on. So I'm going to the menu icon for Citrix files. I can see all the files that have been uploaded there. They take these from the complete platform, so any client that is interacting with these files will show that up. And now when I open the Explorer, I see that I have my H drive and I have a T drive, providing me with all the folders that I have. Going back into the technical marketing folder, the Synergy Atlanta folder that I've created, and let me resize this view so that I have some larger icons so I can explain what's going on. You see the folder, it has a cloud icon next to it, which means that the file are only available online. They have not been synced down to the device yet, but they are there. I can see all the files that are inside there, but they're not on the device. I drag the technical overview presentation there, and you'll see a different kind of icon and notifying that the file is also cached on the device. I can right click, I have some options there. I can download the file, I can look at the details, and I can look at these files, the details, the previous versions of those files. But let me go into my personal folder, again, switch the icon size. Here I have two folders, they're both cached, and now I'm going to make these files available offline. So what you'll see is that the icon, quick refresh here, changes from the regular, it's available in the cache, to a more bolder icon showing me that the file is available offline, so that when I would cut the network cable or the network connection, I can still work with these files. So right click menu, I can look at the details, previous versions, who has the owner, and I can also share these files directly from inside the Explorer. So this is a great way to interact with these files in the same way that our employees are used to working with files and going to these from Explorer, but without having to log on any additional time when you're already logged on to the Workspace app. Now let's go to Outlook. I've launched my Outlook client, and I see that I have my Citrix files options here. Let's look at some of these. So I have my general options. So when I drag in an attachment, every attachment over 5 megabytes will automatically be uploaded to the content collaboration platform and being changed into a link. I can specify some additional settings, how I want the links to be shared, the security settings for those. I'm pretty confident and I'm pretty good with the default settings, but I have this email from Rob, and I want to respond to that. So let me pop out this message and let me type some quick message to Rob. So here you go. Here's the file from the presentation that I did with him this morning, and now I can attach these files. Now obviously I can attach the files directly from the content collaboration repository, and I see all my folders here, all the files that I've uploaded, whether they're in my personal folder or in my team folder. But what I really want to show here is that I have my presentation, I drag it in, it's a 16 megabyte file, and the Citrix Files app automatically notices it's over a certain threshold, over the 5 megabytes. So we create the link, and when I send out the file, what it's doing in the background, it's uploading the file to the content collaboration repository and then sending out the email with a link to that file. So let me quickly go to the Workspace app. The file is being uploaded to the content collaboration repository, and it's visible in the file box for the user. I also see the email message that I've sent out. So it's been done through the client. Because the file has been dragged in and uploaded, I cannot see specifically who it has been shared with, but I can see the file, I can see how long the file will remain available. And now when I've sent out a file accidentally, I can expire the link so that all the recipients of that email message will no longer be able to access the files that I shared. So in case that I've made a mistake, I can easily revert that action, preventing other people from accessing these files again. Some additional things that I want to show. I have the settings where I can look at my Citrix files. So I have my recent files. I can go into the settings, and the one thing that I wanted to show is the offline sync dashboard that we have. So I go in settings, I hit manage, and here I can see all the folders that are synchronized offline. So I had synchronized some files in my personal folder, but I want all the files in there to always be available. And I'm going to work a lot on that synergy project, so I want those files always to be available to me as well. So I change these settings, and now when I go back into my Explorer, I go to my personal folder drive, I see that not only the PowerPoint presentation, but also the Word document that I had in there are now available offline, as well as the folder I had in technical marketing. So the Synergy Atlanta folder is synchronized offline. All the files are available to me, and all the other files and folders are only available when I'm online. I've shown you how you can provide a seamless access to your content collaboration repositories, both from within the Windows Explorer and the Microsoft Outlook app. The seamless single sign-on, leveraging the Workspace Authentication token into content collaboration, really improves the user experience. And by making files offline available, users can be productive even when they're on the move. But what if you need to access your PC that's sitting underneath your desk in the office? There may be a specific application that you have installed on there. Or you have certain files that are classified that they can only be accessed from the devices that sit physically in the office. But you're working remotely today. Mayank will now walk you through the steps to make your device, your physical device, accessible remotely.
Thanks, Rob. Let's look at a few more use cases where we would like to deliver a full desktop interface to any endpoint that a user may have. Like Rob said, for users who have a work PC and need access to it remotely for compliance reasons. Banking and finance, manufacturing, and construction companies come to mind. Flexi work for diversity inclusion programs, for example, working mothers with infant children. Extreme weather and disaster scenarios that are getting more and more common these days. It's more dangerous to go to work than to stay at home. Examples, the Snowmageddon, Paris riots, or flooding in Mumbai, which are becoming annual events. We could mitigate these scenarios with remote desktop, so why would one prefer remote PC? Remote PC provides single sign-on enabled secure remote access to company resources. The user experience is delivered via the best HDX technologies without needing a VPN using Citrix Gateway. We even support an HTML5 clientless agent. Admins can gain insights into user behavior and detect anomalous activity via Citrix Analytics. Wake on LAN capabilities are available in case a desktop is powered off accidentally with Microsoft SCCM. And the session can be secured with a watermark. Now, let's see how this deployment differs from our existing one. Physical machines were being used as endpoints for virtual apps and desktop sessions. But these actually could be the host for the sessions. So those physical desktops and laptops would become part of the resources that are delivered to the end user. Let's see what's going on under the covers here. In this conceptual architecture, you can see that the standard scenario of a user in the office connects to their office PC as the client and is then connecting to virtual apps and desktops delivered via Citrix Cloud Services. In a remote PC scenario, the office machine the user is connected to becomes the resource and therefore moves into the on-prem resource section. As this is a Windows PC in the office, it would have already been joined to the domain. The admin will now need to install the VDA on the machine. The VDA then registers with the on-prem delivery controller. The admin will now need to perform the steps to make the machine available to the user. First, the admin must create a machine catalog with the Office PCs that need to be connected to remotely. We do this by searching for the machine host names in the Active Directory. We then add them to the machine catalog. Then the admin creates a delivery group so we can associate the users with their individual Office machines that they have been using before. The requirement is to create a 1:1 mapping for the users with their desktops and laptops. The admin can then publish them as a resource to the user's workspace. The user can then log into the workspace and click on the newly added resource and connect to their Office desktop or laptop via the gateway. Now we are ready to walk through the process of delivering a remote PC session to a user. We have 3 tasks to accomplish as an admin. 1. Install the VDA on the physical machine. 2. Create a remote PC machine catalog. And 3. Create a delivery group for the catalog and then assign a user to the machine in the delivery group. Then we will be able to launch a session for the user. We begin by logging onto the physical machine as an admin. For the sake of time, I have already downloaded the Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops ISO onto the machine. We'll open it and then launch the auto installer. Once the installer opens, we'll select Virtual Apps and Desktops and then select the Virtual Delivery Agent for Windows Desktop OS to install the VDA. In the environment config, we'll select Enable Remote PC Access and click Next. Click Next on the core components and then leave additional components as default and click Next. In the delivery controller section, we either enter the fully qualified name of the delivery controller or the cloud connector that we wish to register the VDA to. In our case, we enter the name of the DDC and then we click Test Connection to validate the connection. Click Add and then click Next. We leave the features as default and then click Next. And same goes for the firewall as well. We look at the summary and click Install. And then we'll have to wait for the installation of the VDA to complete. In the meanwhile, let me tell you about one of our largest remote PC deployments. We have a large IT services firm as a customer, and at any point in time, they have a number of employees that need to work from home, especially pregnant employees or employees who have infant children, or employees that are at customer sites that need to be connected remotely. So they initially bought 2,000 licenses to be able to extend the diversity program that they had. And then they've actually extended it to 20,000 seats. That's 20,000 Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops Platinum licenses, so that they're able to deliver the value of remote PC access to all of their employees. This use case of providing work from home for extending diversity and inclusion programs is a top of mind for a lot of companies at this point in time. As you can see, the installation has moved into its final stage. Once it asks for the Smart Tools installation, we'll skip that for now and click Next. And then it's going to ask us to click Finish to restart the machine so that the rest of the installation can complete. Go ahead and do that. and then the VDA will be installed. We will now switch over to the admin machine to perform a task in the Citrix Studio. We will first create a new machine catalog. Click Create Machine Catalog. Click Next. Under Operating System, we'll select Remote PC Access and click Next. Under the machine accounts, we'll have to search for the host name of the machine that we had installed the VDA on. This can be done by an AD lookup. Once we've selected that, we can choose what VDA version needs to be set and then click Next. Then we provide a name for the machine catalog. In our case, it's Remote PC. We can optionally provide a machine catalog description so that administrators know what this catalog has been created for. In our case, we could say this is a physical machine connection or actually physical machine session. We click Finish to have the catalog be created. Now we'll have to create a delivery group to correspond to this catalog. Click Delivery Groups and then click Create Delivery Group on the Actions pane. We'll click Next and select the catalog that we've just created. After that, we'll be providing the set of users that can access this particular delivery group. For right now, we'll select one user, which is Bob. And we can click Next. Here in the desktop assignment rule is where we'll provide the name of the icon that will be shown inside of Storefront. So the display name would be Remote PC. And we can provide a description as well. In our case, these are office machines that we will provide remote access to. So let's just give that office machine remote access. And we'll add a list of users who will be the ones that will get access to this remote PC delivery group. Again, in our case, it's Bob C. We go next and then we provide the name of the delivery group and we click Finish. This will create the delivery group for us. We can click on the delivery group to see the machine that has been associated with it. Now, there is an important step to be done here before we can actually go and launch the session. It's to assign the user to the particular machine. So we select the machine and we add Bob to that particular machine. This step is the one that creates the 1:1 relationship between the user and the machine that we have as the remote PC. With the delivery group created, we are now ready to go and launch the session. To launch the user session, we'll connect to the user's system. This could be any endpoint that the user has at the remote location. For our scenario, we're using a Windows desktop again. Under the desktop section in the workspace, we can look at all desktops and find the new remote PC delivery group. Once the user clicks on the remote PC delivery group, the session is going to launch, and therefore Bob will now have the ability to connect from a remote machine to his office PC. That would conclude the demo. So we've seen how to get remote PC access to your office desktop or laptop. The steps we employed to perform the VDA installation would be cumbersome for an admin if there were a large number of desktops to be included in the setup. But if the desktops or laptops were managed, then we could use endpoint management capabilities to automate this process. Frank will now walk you through the Windows 10 management features for Citrix endpoint management that will help lighten that load. Over to you, Frank.
Thanks, Mayank. Let's now see how Citrix endpoint management can lighten those workloads. Architecturally, when a user connects to the Workspace experience contacts the resource feed microservice to get a list of resources. The microservice requests content from the endpoint management service. For new devices, users are asked to enroll their device. If the device is approved, the device enrolls with the endpoint management service, which applies a set of policies and restrictions using the device management, endpoint experience, and network management microservices. These define policies, restrictions, network access, and other settings. Based on the type of device used, different sets of policies may get applied. So let's take a look at a Windows 10 enrollment. A user enrolls a Windows 10 device and it will communicate directly to the endpoint management service. The endpoint management service will communicate to the identity microservice. This identity microservice passes the credentials across the secure channel to the cloud connector for authentication against the Active Directory domain. After the credentials have been verified, the device enrolls into the endpoint management service and applies device restrictions, policies, dynamic endpoint optimization, and application installation and configurations. Now that we've seen a look at the endpoint management architecture, let's see a demo of this in action. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the configuration within the endpoint management console. In order to get there, we're going to go ahead from the Citrix Cloud. We're going to click on the Manage Endpoint Management. And from there, we're going to notice that there's a couple of different options that we have. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to come over and we're going to begin the configuration. So we're going to click on the Configure tab and we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a device policy. So one of the first device policies we're going to add is going to be in the Windows desktop and tablet section, and we're going to configure the Windows agent that gets pushed down into the Win 10 machine. And what we're going to do here is we're going to actually have the VDA client pushed down via a PowerShell script. So we're going to go ahead and name this Win 10 VDA install. And then I'm going to go ahead and select the Windows desktop / tablet, and I'm going to go ahead and hit add. I'm going to need to give this a configuration name. So VDA install script, and this is PowerShell, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to go ahead and upload the script. I'm going to actually specify the script's location because I already have that located, and I'm going to go ahead and grab that from here, copy the link, and I'm hosting this on a web server, and I can come over here and paste that in and then hit next, and then go ahead and assign that to the all users and go ahead and hit save. So now I'm going to go ahead and have the VDA silently installed onto the machine during enrollment. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another policy. It's going to be another Windows 10 policy. And this is going to be an application configuration. And this is going to be to configure the Citrix Workspace app. So Win10 Workspace app config. I'm going to go ahead and clear out all the settings, and I'm going to select the Windows desktop and tablet. It is a Win32 app, and I'm going to go ahead and browse to my ADMX file. And now I can go ahead and begin to add in some of these settings. So one of the first ones that we want to find is going to be the connection for the store. So as we come through here, we can go ahead and look to see where the store is, and right here we see the storefront, and I'm going to go ahead and enable this, and then I'm going to paste in the storefront information, and then I can go ahead and click on add, and then I can find an additional policy, so I can do allow client connections, and I want to enable the client, and I'm going to also enable the client here, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in a minimum version. So the minimum version I'm going to select here is 18009, and go ahead and click on next. And then from there is going to be the assignment, and I'm going to go ahead and assign this to all users and click on save. All right, so the last thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to push out the Citrix Files application. And in order to do that, I'm going to switch over to the applications, and I'm going to go ahead and click on add the application. And this is going to be an enterprise application. So I'm going to say Citrix Files for Windows. And I'm going to clear all of the options. I'm going to select the Windows desktop and tablet, and I'm going to click on upload. And this is going to be an MSI file. So I'm going to go ahead and select that file and click on open. Now once I have this file and it's opened, what you're going to notice is there's going to be some requirements that I have to place in here. So one of those is going to be this description. So I'm once again just going to put in Citrix Files for Windows. And then I'm going to need the application name. So to get this information, I need to utilize the Orca app, which is a Microsoft app, and then I can go ahead and get the information from the Properties tab. So I went in, I opened up the MSI inside the Orca, and I can get the product name. So I'm going to go over here, copy my product name. And then I'm going to get the application version, which I have right here. And then I need to get the product code, and the product code is going to be right here. I do not need the brackets, so I'm going to copy everything except for the brackets. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. And then I'm going to leave the installation for the device, and then from there I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And I am not going to assign this to a delivery group right now because I want this to be a required application, not an optional one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And then as I click on save, you'll see that the application is here. I can go over to my delivery groups now. I can go to the delivery group that I have it assigned to, or I wish to have it assigned to, and I can come over here and click on edit. And when I look at the policies, I'll see the policies are there. And when I look at the applications, I can actually come over here, drag that file into the required applications, click on next, all the way through until I get to the summary. And then from there, I will go ahead and save it. So I've gone ahead and I've configured the Citrix Files application to get pushed down. I've configured the VDA, which will push down the VDA client, as well as the Workspace app. And I also pushed a configuration file, the ADMX, for the Citrix Workspace app to go ahead and configure some of the settings within there. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and we're going to come over to our user's machine, and this is a Windows 10 machine. It is a Windows 10 Pro machine, and it is domain joined. So what we're going to do here is we need to continue with the enrollment of this machine so we can get the policies that are required. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Start menu. We're going to go to the Settings. We're going to go to Accounts. And then in the Accounts, we're going to see Access, Work, and School. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to see that I'm connected to the domain, but I want to enroll in the MDM. So from here, it's going to ask me for my email address. So chuckn@ctxmaster.com. Now, I don't have the auto discovery enabled at this time, but I'm going to go ahead and put in my MDM server. The MDM server is simply the Citrix Endpoint Management machine that we have running in the Citrix Cloud. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there, and then I can go ahead and click on Next. And then it's going to go ahead and communicate to the Endpoint Management, and now I'm going to be asked for my credentials, and the Cloud Connector will go ahead and verify those credentials with Active Directory. So I'm going to come in here and enter in my credentials and click on Continue. And then once I continue, we're going to see that it's going to register with the Endpoint Management, and the information is begin to sync. And I can come here, and then as I look here, you'll see that my machine is now MDM joined, and I can click on the info, and it'll tell me the information that has been deployed out to my machine. So the deployment itself does take a little bit of time for applications to get pushed down, as well as the scripts to run. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and close out this window, and we can see that the Citrix Files application is currently being installed, but I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. Okay, so as you can see, I brought up the Task Manager, and the Task Manager is going to be useful because it's showing me that the virtual apps and desktop has been installed, the Workspace application has been installed, and you can also see that the agent is currently running as well. So what we're going to do now is reboot this machine since the applications and files have been installed and the configuration. So we're going to go ahead and close out the Task Manager, and then I'm going to go ahead and reboot the machine, and then we will be back once this machine reboots. Okay, we are back and logging into the Windows machine, and now that the machine has been logged into, we're going to go ahead and verify a couple of things. One of the things we want to verify is that the Workspace app is installed, and it is, and we're going to go ahead and launch that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and when this launches, we're going to get our little splash screen. So I'm going to say got it, And then we're going to notice that it's going to say down here that it's being configured. So that is the ADMX file that we pushed down that actually identified the store for us. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. I'm going to put in my username and password. And log in, and we're going to see that the workspace is going to go ahead and populate for us. And I have successfully logged into the workspace. So the workspace application got pushed down. I was able to log in. I can actually view my favorites from an application in desktop, and I also can look at my files. I did install the Citrix Files app so that I can have the files locally on the machine, so I'm going to go ahead and launch that as well. And one of the things that we're going to notice is that this is going to identify that the Workspace application is installed, and it's going to ask me to log in with those credentials. And I can put those credentials back in. And log in. And then I can come down here and see that my Citrix files are syncing, and I can actually come over here and look at my PC, and we'll actually see that the S drive for Citrix files is there as well. So the enrollment has been successful. The configuration from the admin side was successful. I'm going to go ahead and close out this screen, and I'm aware that there's probably some questions in regards to the PowerShell script that was written and deployed, as well as some of the information that I was put into the ADMX file. So I'm going to click over here on our admin environment, and we're going to take a quick look at some of those things. We're going to start off with the ADMX file, and where did I go ahead and get the store URL? So because I am utilizing a Citrix gateway, what I did is I went ahead and I got the information in regards to that through our documents site. And what you're going to see is in the getting started, there's going to be the policy templates, but I'm also going to scroll down and there's going to be a section in here in regards to Citrix gateway stores. So when you look at the Citrix Gateway Store, you're going to have your store name, your store URL, the store name, which indicates what the store is behind the gateway, the enablement state and description. So when you see the example here, you'll see here's the example, and then bang, or I should say hashtag store name on store for HR staff. So when we come over and we look at mine, we're going to see that I have my Citrix Workspace. Then that's the name of the store. That the end user sees the actual URL. And then I have my hashtag store on, and then the store name, which is going to be store Workspace. So the information is available from the docs side, and you can get more information at docs.citrix.com. Now, when we look at the policy to allow the clients, what I did from the minimum client version, it does require that it is 5 digits long. So in this specific instance, I started with the 1809 build. So when we look at the 1809 build here, we'll see the 1809. However, the version is 18.9.0. So I went ahead and I utilized the 18.9.0, and then I just added an extra 0 to say anything greater than the 18900. So even this version would be approved. So that's where I went ahead and got that information. Now let's take a look at that PowerShell script. So when I bring up the PowerShell script, one of the things that you're going to notice is I'm going to go ahead and do some compression with the file system. So I'm hosting the actual installation exe on a server. And then what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and making sure that's a zipped file so that the PowerShell script can download it. It's not going to be an exe, which is going to cause any type of headaches during the download process. I'm actually going to go ahead and put that into the temp folder, which is in our Windows and then temp folder. And then I'm instructing it to get a date in U format, and I'm going to append that with a -VDA. So for every PowerShell script or exe that you're going to be pushing down, you need to make sure that you're creating a new naming system. So now I have VDA, and then my VDA zip directory, and that equals the temp zip file. And as we kind of go through here, we can see what we're doing, and then I'm going to actually download that file, and then I'm going to extract it. And once that's extracted, then I'm utilizing a command line to go ahead and install the VDA workstation. So as you can see here, I'm utilizing the VDA workstation setup exe, and then I'm installing the VDA and the plugins, which is what installed the Workspace app. I'm identifying what my controller is, that I'm utilizing the remote PC, that I want the installation to be quiet. I'm enabling remote assistance. I'm disabling the experience metrics, and I am also enabling the real-time transport as well as HDX ports. And then I am choosing not to do a reboot during the installation, and I waited for everything to be installed, and then I did a manual reboot. What you're going to do is we're going to actually look to see where this file was installed. So if I go back over to my user machine and I open up File Explorer and I go into my Windows, and I go into the Windows folder, and I go into the temp folder here, we'll actually see that the file was downloaded. So I actually have the zip file that's in here. And then that went ahead and expanded, and we unzipped it. And then from there, I was able to go ahead and run that exe. So there's a little bit more information on the administrative side for you. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this off to Dan, and he's actually going to look at explaining some ways that we can add some additional security to our workspace.
We've got Windows 10 devices. From there, users have access to all their different content repositories. Users can now remotely access those Windows 10 devices in case they can't make it to the office or they're not in the same physical location as that PC. And we showed how we can use endpoint management to manage that aspect of it. How we can manage that Windows 10 endpoint device, and as well as push out that VDA, push out the Citrix files. So the things we talked about, that's all being managed in a modern way. But one of the challenges that we still have is logging in. Logging into the Workspace app right now is username and password. And we all know the challenges that we have with passwords. You're going to forget them. Or you're going to use a password that's password exclamation point or something like that, something that can be guessed or hacked. So what we want to do is provide one option for multi-factor authentication. And I say one option because there's many different ways to do multi-factor authentication. In this instance, we want to just talk about this first one as a time-based one-time password. So you might have seen this as TOTP, but it's a time-based one-time password. And what this is, here's just 3 examples. You have the Microsoft Authenticator, the Google Authenticator, as well as the Citrix SSO. A time-based one-time password is 6 digits that look random and that only have a 30-second lifespan. And then when 30 seconds is over, you get a new set of 6 digits and a new set of 6 digits. This is what a time-based one-time password is. You put this on your mobile device. So now when you log on, it is something you know, which is your password, and it's something you have, which is this device that has that token. So how a time-based one-time password works is like this. You start with a shared key, and you got to get this key out to the user so that it can be installed on their mobile device. That same key is also being stored internally, on the infrastructure. In this instance, it's going to be running internally. When I say internally, I mean Citrus Cloud. It's stored in the Citrus Cloud infrastructure for this particular user, for this particular organization. Now, how a time-based one-time password works is that key uses, we apply a secure hash algorithm against the key and against the current time. The result of that is a passcode. So then when you enter that passcode into the logon, the system is going to verify that passcode equals the passcode that the infrastructure generated as well. Assuming it's the same key and it's the same time, the passcode should be the same. And because it only lasts 30 seconds, there's a very short time window for someone to steal that code and then log in as you, which makes it a fairly decent way to add multi-factor authentication into the environment. So let's break this down now architecturally to show how this works. So a user's on a device and they launch Workspace app. Workspace app then connects to the Workspace experience service running in Citrus Cloud, and it's going to provide you with the logon workflow. Now the user is going to select, hey, I don't have a token. I need to get a new token. So the identity microservice is going to start the new token workflow for the user. The user is going to be asked to enter in their UPN, which Workspace is then going to be able to identify, okay, this user's UPN is related to this particular email address that's been associated with it in Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. And then it's going to use the email microservice to send you a validation code. Now that validation code, you then enter in to Workspace app and the Workspace experience. The identity microservice then validates that code is correct. It takes your credentials, your username and password, sends that across a secure channel to the cloud connector, and authenticates you against Active Directory. So you have validated that your UPN, you've given it the UPN, which was able to get your email address. It's sent the validation code to your email. You provided that along with your password, your domain password, to Workspace. It's validated that, so it's like, okay, I believe you are who you say you are, so I am now going to give you the key. This is the pre-shared key. I now take my device, I take my mobile phone, and I install one of the Authenticator applications that I choose, and I'm going to enter in that pre-shared key. I now have my token. So now when I need to log on, what ends up happening is I launch Workspace app talks to the Workspace experience and starts this whole logon process using the identity microservice. So I'm going to enter my username, my password on my device, then on my mobile device, I'm going to launch the Authenticator app and then enter in that 6-digit code into the logon screen. The identity microservice is going to validate that code, and then the username and password credentials will then be passed across that secured channel to your on-prem identity provider, which in this case will be Windows Active Directory, and we're going to validate your username and password as well. So once the authentication is approved, it's been validated, then the resource feed microservice is then going to give you the list of all the different resources, the applications, the desktops, the content that you have access to that we've seen before. Let's look at how this works. Let's set this up from an admin perspective as well as the users. Let's set it up as an admin. Let's configure our Workspace environment for time-based one-time password, and then as user, we're going to walk through of requesting a new token and using that new token to authenticate us into the environment. Within our Cloud Console, we need to enable the TOTP setting just for our environment. So this is the first part. We're basically just enabling this service for our particular Workspace environment. The next thing we need to do is turn on the TOTP authentication for Workspace logons. And this is so when you log into Workspace app, you will now, in addition to getting your username and password, you're also going to get the time-based one-time password. With that configured, we can go back to the user side and take a look at what the authentication looks like now for Workspace app. So there's the password token. Now, because I'm a new user and I don't have a token, I need to go ahead and register to get a new one. So I need to enter in my ID, my domain user account, or my fully my UPN address, my email address. So once I enter this in, I'm getting an email sent to that address with a verification code. That verification code I now need to enter into Workspace app along with my domain password. And then Workspace is going to authenticate me. It's going to verify that code as well as my password. Now this is my key. This is the shared key. I need to scan this with my phone. So I'm going to go ahead and reconnect my phone up so we can go ahead and see what's happening on the phone side of this setup for the token. Looks like the reason why I can't find my phone is actually being hidden by the Workspace screen. So let me rearrange these windows a little bit just so we can see what's going on both sides. Okay, now we've got the phone. You can see what's on the screen of my phone. Now what I need to do is I need to install the Authenticator app. So in this example, I'm going to go ahead and get into the Google Play Store and do the Citrix SSO. This is Citrix's Authenticator app. And like I said before, you can use other ones because it's all based on a standard, an industry standard, so you can use multiple or different authenticating apps. Now, with the app downloaded and installed, I can go ahead and launch it, and accept these different requests just for functionality with on the phone. I'm going to go into connections and I'm going to add one. And so I'm doing this by scanning. So it's using my camera. I'm going to go ahead and scan that QR code, and I now have my time-based one-time password. It's already set up. So I can now finish the wizard and go ahead and try to re-authenticate to my environment using my ID, using my password, and then using the token from my phone that we just configured. So let's actually try it again. Maybe I mistyped something. So let's do this again. Okay, this one looks like it's letting us in, so I must have mistyped a password or something. But you can see with that, now we've authenticated in the environment with this new code. The next thing I want to show is so let's say you lost your phone. Let's say your phone was stolen. So we want to be able to block access to that particular token. So if we go back into our cloud environment and hit the recovery tab, selecting our domain, entering in the username, we can go ahead and reset that device. So that token is now erased from the system. So if somebody stole your phone and tries to log on to the environment using that token, it's going to fail because that token is no longer valid. I think there's one thing I would like to point out when it comes to time-based one-time password. And that is, don't put your private key out there on a PowerPoint slide, because anyone could actually scan this with any of those authenticator apps, scan that QR code or enter in that key, and they would have the key for your time-based one-time password. Now, before all of you, take out your cameras and start taking a picture of this thinking that you're going to get my token, just so you know that this has been modified, so it's not valid. I mean, you will get a token, but it's not for my user account. And actually, the last part of that demo, what we did is we reset the token for our user. So the token is no longer valid. But if you go about and utilize time-based one-time password for your environment, you create help files or help emails or that for your users, and you want to do screenshots, probably a good idea not to use your QR code or private key, or else they have it. So you want to make sure you either blur it out or modify it a little bit, or at least create it, take a picture, and then reset it within Citrus Cloud. So we've incorporated Windows 10. Users can now get remote access to it via their Workspace app. From their Windows 10 device, they get access to all of their content because we've integrated different storage zones and repositories in the environment. And we've all managed this via the endpoint management service as well. So now you're thinking, what's going to come up next? What are we going to see in the next episode? And this is going to be happening in late Q2. And let's go back to our architecture diagram. So what I realized is that there's many different ways that we can provide a VDI environment, and we haven't talked about this in quite a long time. So in the Q2 2019 Masterclass, we're going to focus on VDI. There's more than one way to VDI. We can do on-prem, we can do cloud, we can do as a service. There's even now Microsoft's been talking about the Windows Virtual Desktops. We're going to look at all these different ways that we can provide VDI services to an end user, as well as how to make that secure connection from wherever the endpoint is at to the actual VDI desktop. And with that, I think we can open it up for a few minutes for some Q&A.